So I've got a Creality Ender-5-S1 3D printer. This was sent to me to test it out. I didn't buy it. I'm not getting paid to do this video. I'm just going to test it out and we're going to see how good it works. And that's all I'm really doing here. And I'll give you my opinion when we're finished. Now, being a wood turner, I keep trying to figure out what I can use these tools for in my wood turning. I believe I've got some things that you will really be interested in. I know I am. You've already seen a few things that I've made from metal and wood that really help the wood turning. So you will want to see these. So make sure you stick around and watch it. And I'll probably make some little trinkets too, that fun little things to play with. Oh, and I also have something in mind to make that will help grinding our gouges a lot easier. So again, you want to watch this stuff. It's going to be pretty interesting if I can do it. So a little about the machine. The travel is 220 by 220 and it's 280 in the Z. And they say it can reach speeds of 250 millimeters a second. I don't know. We're going to try that. That's pretty fast. But they also say the typical printing speed is 120. And it's driven by these stepper motors. It's got one for the X, the Y, and the Z. So this brings up something it's been bugging me since I started investigating 3D printers. When you go and watch videos and the people are talking about it and they're talking about the axis that goes up and down, which I just call Z, every one of them seem to call it Z. The Z axis. We're going to set the Z offset. We're going to raise the Z. It's Z, folks. That's all I ever learned. It's called Z, and it just bugs me so much. I'm sorry. It just really bothers me. So I'm done with that. We don't need to worry about it. I'm going to call it Z, though. So what else do we got going on here? So the construction on this is called a cube or a box. So it's all framed in, and it should be a lot sturdier. The other one that I have, it just goes up and down in here, and so you have a potential maybe of that moving, although it's worked good. But the fact that this Z axis is not done by the printing head, it's done by this table. So I think the box probably helps that out. So normally I would just start doing it right here. But 3D printers need to be in somewhat of a controlled temperature. Now I do have a room back there that I can have an air conditioner and a heater and keep it at a constant temperature. But unfortunately where I would put this, something else is sitting there right now and I don't want to disturb it. So we're going to bring this back inside. It's got these cool little handles right here where I can just pick it up and carry it instead of grabbing it by the frame, and I can bring it in, I can set it behind me, I can be sitting in my computer chair running the program off of my computer where it's nice and warm. So that's going to be fun because I don't like working in the cold. There is something else I haven't tried. I'll go ahead and show you. They sent this also. It's called the Sonic Pad. I know nothing about this. I see people using them, but right now I don't want to learn how to use that. So we're just going to run this off of the touch screen or my computer, which is probably what I'll do. Oh, something else is pretty cool. There's a slot here for a full-size SD card, not the little mini one. When I drop I can never find, which I have down here somewhere. There's an SD card, but I like the idea of the big one. Let's head on back inside and see if we can make some really cool things. So I'm inside now. I've got it all set up and I'll make a few parts and show you how this works. It does take quite a while to 3D print most things. Even if this runs at 250 millimeters a second, it still is going to take some time. This one, I believe I'm running it at 100 millimeters a second just to get going on this. I'll increase it later. Take a look at that design, see if you can figure out what it might be. And basically I'm not going to have any sound of the machine going because, well, it picks it up pretty loudly. Plus, it's a long video, so I'm going to have to run them at a faster speed. Even if it was running slower, it's not necessarily that exciting to watch. It's kind of cool to watch it raise up off the bed like it's doing, though. So I'm going to gradually increase the speed and see what I can get out of this. I think I have this one at 100 millimeters a second, and it seems to be doing quite well. Much faster than the other machine. I never did run it very fast. So the last part you saw being made, I think, is going to be really useful for a wood turner. This one here definitely will be if it all works out. Now, you may have an idea what it is. Just have a good look at it as it's being built. See if you can guess what it is. And I'm looking forward to seeing how this works out. This part, if it was running at normal speed, it would take 45 minutes to complete it. And nobody wants to watch that for 45 minutes. That's why we're doing it faster. It also is something I downloaded from Tinkercad, and it actually was booked with another half like this, but I wanted to make some changes to it, and I'll tell you about that when we get out to the shop and I show you how it works. But I sort of modified this one, and I think I'll redraw the whole thing up myself because it really doesn't fit that well. I think this is running slower again because I actually did it before the first one, and I think I might be at 80 millimeters a second. And this one isn't directly used for wood turning, but it's definitely used for making wood turning videos, so see if you can figure that out. I've also learned that some of these parts, especially when they're thin, it's best to have what they call a raft underneath it, and you're definitely going to see that pretty soon because that's a really good way to make them stick down if you have a thin part. So there's another clue coming up real soon, and if you are into cameras at all, I think you'll figure out what this is for. This one I have really looked forward to making, and I'm pretty sure it's going to work really good. And I'm running this at 200 millimeters a second. Even at that, it takes about an hour and 45 minutes to make this part. And those other parts are usually around an hour for those small ones. So I have not made a 8-hour part yet, but maybe if I find something that I want to make, I'll give it a try. But it's nice to get to know the machine, see how it works, so you know that you'll be able to make that and not come back and have a pile of spaghetti. So that's just building it up with kind of a honeycomb center in there, and that'll give it a lot of strength, and this part's going to need strength. I'm pretty sure it's going to work out just fine. So as soon as this part finishes and cools down a little bit, I'm going to take this and the rest of them out to the shop, and I'll show you what they look like, what they are, and how they work. And I also have a couple other things that I've made that are pretty clever how they're made, and they're kind of fun and kind of really interesting to how it works. So I'll see you out there in a couple seconds. Alright, I just finished up 3D printing quite a few things, and some of them are going to be very useful for wood turning, and the other ones, I suppose the only use they have is they're very entertaining, and they were kind of fun to make, and I'll show you those as well. But one thing that I made that you were able to watch is these little angle gauges. That one's 40, that's 45, it's 35, 50, and 55. These are very common angles that you use on your gouges. So there's one of my gouges, it's ground with a 55, so I can just check it like this, and that is 55. So I think that's going to be very handy. So I made this, and I put little lips on there so that it would hold it, and I've got a hole in the top that I 3D printed the whole thing at one time, and I can hang it up, and if I remember to hang it up I can always find it. But I think this is going to really help a lot. So something that I have made before, and that's this. That's the ring cutting guide that I put on my tool post that I made, and there's a 3D printed version of it, and it's real dense, real strong. I think it'll work just fine for cutting rings. And here's one that is on the tool post that I use for this one, and that's a piece of aluminum, and it's got a bolt that goes in there. I think that's going to work just fine. I also had a video showing using parts from Nova to build your own. Well, I went ahead and printed one up here, and that has threads that go up through the bottom of it. So I printed those threads in there, and it goes on, and that fits a Nova rest for the tool post, which this is a modular tool post that you can put just about anything you want on it. I saw something on Tinkercad where somebody had modeled up some jaws for a Nova, but those jaws had a flat on the sides for grabbing flat things. I took that model and I brought it into my CAD program, and I changed it up a little bit, and I made it to hold a 3/4 inch round. And I'll show you this over on the lathe as soon as I show you the rest of these cool little things. So these are very functional for wood turning here. All of the printers come with these little test pieces. That's called a benchy, and that was a rabbit. I used the filament that came with it, which was white, and printed these, and it indeed does print it very fast. I thought this was pretty cool. It's the same thing. It's printed with a little bit of space. It's all printed at once, and it's a spinner, gyro spinner. So I made a couple of these. It was kind of cool. It's a slug, and it's an articulated slug. That's all printed in one piece. And then there's this right here, which is a kind of a lizard, and I snuck that in and put it on my wife's keyboard when she wasn't looking. And she knows I'm up to this stuff all the time, so it didn't even scare her. But that's kind of creepy, actually. I mean, you lay it on her and you think you got a real lizard on you. I'm going to move over to the lathe and show you how that chuck works. The intentions are for this to close down perfectly on a 3/4 inch diameter. That could be a dowel that I want to work on, or it could be something I've turned on a lid where it dowels to another piece. And I will not be turning anything that hangs off of this jaws. It's strictly for sanding, or maybe putting a mark on the end of it for something else. That's pretty much dead center. So I wouldn't necessarily always be using 3/4. Maybe I would use 5/8. So this is actually a sleeve, a split sleeve that's 3/4 on the outside, 5/8 on the inside. So I can put that in there, and that runs very good as well. A lot of times I might be using a 1/2 inch. So yep, I made one for a 1/2 inch, and that's just a 1/2 inch dowel, and that easily could just bend something I turned on one side of a turning for pinning it together. So that's the main use for this. I didn't have any other jaws that would do this, and that also runs perfect. So I think this is going to work just fine. I've got to do a little changing here, and then I'll show you the other part that I made and how it works. So I found this scrap with a tenon hot glued on it laying around. So we're going to test this out. This is absolutely the first time I have tried this. I would say it works, and it doesn't feel like there's any downward pressure being put on that at all, so I'm going to trust it. Alright, we're just about done here. I'm going to go back and show you the other pieces and we'll wrap this up. Well, that about wraps it up. I do think I made some pretty cool things for wood turning, but if you have some ideas on what you'd like to see me make pertaining to wood turning using this 3D printer, let me know. I'll go ahead and put some information in the description about this machine in case you're interested, and also let me know what you thought about the video, and until the next time, see you later.